Well, for months we've been talking about Sean Posey's latest book, Hidden History of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley. And Sean is here because finally it's out, right?
Just came out last week.
How long did it take?
You know, the writing of it took about most of the pandemic up until about last fall.
Okay.
But the research was kind of years in the making. You know, I originally was thinking about doing a series of essays for the Vindicator, like kind of a history column before, of course, you know, the Vindicator unfortunately closed.
Right.
So I put that aside, and when the pandemic started, I did a piece looking back at the Spanish flu in the Mahoning Valley for Metro Monthly. And after I did that, and it became clear that pandemic that we were in, COVID-19, was going to be going on for quite a while, I decided to kind of bring all this work together, figure out how to put it into a book, basically a series of essays looking at more obscure parts, but important parts of Youngstown history.
And that's kind of the time frame we're talking about, beginning of the 1900s?
A lot of that. There are some things in here that people will have lived through. Some stuff from the 50s and the 60s that people will recognize, I think, right away. They'll recognize or have heard about it or know the time frame. But there was a lot of very early 20th century history that I think people will be very surprised to read about.
Isn't it eerie how the Spanish flu mimics our pandemic a little bit? Or more than a little bit?
I start out that chapter talking about, you know, the city being locked down, nobody on the streets, restaurants closed, social distancing, and then I say, you know, sounds like today, right? But this is actually 1918. Much of the same stuff going on. And
the stories in this book are just kind of little tidbits, things you found out along the way, or how, when it says hidden history, what do you mean?
You know, sometimes I think of hidden history as forgotten history.
Okay.
So things that my grandfather might have lived through, probably did live through, and would have known about. But people that today, his generation is gone, people today are going to be probably mostly unaware of.
Did you kind of fall into this history buff thing, or was that something you always liked?
In a way I did. I have a master's degree in history.
Okay.
And you know, I had to do a lot of research during it because I did a thesis and everything. And all my research that I did, I tried to do using local resources. So kind of telling national history through history in the Mahoning Valley.
Is there a part of this book or a story in this book where even you were kind of caught off guard?
Yes, several. One in particular, the history of the Mahoning County Infirmary. I really didn't know much about infirmaries. You know, one time almost every county in Ohio had what people called a poorhouse or a county home or infirmary where people went, lived, and died, and very often were buried at. And that's really a whole kind of forgotten chapter of American history.
Sure.
But it was interesting to do, and also interesting because I actually live on part of the old Mahoning County Infirmary farm. There was a farm, and I live on part of that, what used to be that property.
So there could be some bodies or deceased people that were buried in your yard or under your house?
That's possible. There were a couple of, it's not clear how many cemeteries there were. One of them I have pinpointed, and I actually have photographs of the headstones. There are definitely bodies buried in some of the surrounding neighborhoods still.
How do you get the stories? Do you just go newspaper accounts, or do you get them from people, or how do you do it, and how do you get the pictures?
You know, people who are interested can look in the bibliography. I have all my sources, and I have them broken down. I try to use a variety of things: newspapers, oral histories, government documents, all kinds of things. Local government documents, national too, national archives. So a variety of different research. I try to fill it out as much as possible. The pictures might be the hardest part. I've gotten pictures from everywhere. Sometimes it's just like you have to go on a hunt.
Sure.
And you have to be single-minded about where can I find these photos. I have to find every single source because a lot of them are just, and you have to think about it when you're writing about a subject, because there have been things that I've wanted to write about.
Yeah.
I just can't find any photos.
Do you do that? Do you find a photo and write the story, or is it the other way around? Write the story and try to find a picture?
I try to come up with an idea, and then before I get too deep in it, see if there's actually any photographs pertaining to that. And sometimes there isn't.
I would think when people pick up your books, they probably recognize some of the people in the pictures or recognize the stories.
When I did Lost Youngstown, a woman got a hold of me a few months after it came out, and her mother was on the cover in this kind of a group of people on the street, and her mother was still alive.
Oh, wow.
Well into her 90s, and I thought that was interesting. So that was one I actually got to hear about.
So there's been 3 books. Are you good for a little bit, or is there something percolating in there that you want to do
I think
next?
I'm good for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just writing a book, as you might imagine, it's a lot of work, and it's pretty.
I'd never do it.
It's pretty exhausting.
It's way too hard.
Yeah,
I mean, in theory, it's a great idea. Well, you should write a book.
Right.
But then you try writing the book.
And it's and you in a way you have to get consumed with it too.
Yeah.
Just in order to really do it, because if you're not, you're probably just never going to finish it.
Right. All right. So the book is out. Tell people how they can find it.
Sure. All of the usual suspects online. So Amazon,
Right.
Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. Here in town, people have told me they've seen it here, they've seen it there. I know for a fact that Barnes and Noble in Boardman is definitely a place that's going to have it.
Very cool. And what a great gift idea. Like sometimes your dad's got enough golf shirts to wear one the rest of his life every single day. But this is something really unique and different.
Absolutely.
I think. Well, it's about $20, right?
Yeah.
Not too bad.
That's right.
Not too bad. Check it out. Hidden History of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley. And thanks for the book. But not only that, thank you for doing all the great things you do on our show. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
All right, Sean Posey, everybody.